Christina. She's going to call her. Okay. Welcome to City Council. Thanks for your patience as we get started a few minutes late today. We are missing one council member. Councilmember Michelle Randall is under the weather today, so she sends her regrets, but we hope she feels better soon. So we will begin with, first of all, an invocation by Elder Jim Hetrick of the Community of Christ Church, and again representing the Interfaith Council. Following Elder Hetrick, I've asked Shane Whitwer if he would come and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Elder Hetrick.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
You join me in a short prayer. It will be short. Heavenly Father, I'm always so grateful to be here and to share a prayer with this council and with those who assemble to help share in the direction of our community. The councilmen step forward, and women step forward to lead our community. But our community is strong because we have people who are willing to do that. And we're a community of compassion and love and generosity and also of joy. We reach out to one another. We have places like Switch Point and Dove House and the hospital and the soup kitchens and the learning center, all where people volunteer, Father, to reach out to others, to help give a hand up. And we find, Father, that we also have those who would protect us and our property and the first responders. But all in all, Lord, it all comes from the strength that we receive from you and your blessing of this community, because those in this community, by and large, seek you out, listen to your spirit, and find hope in their dedication and faith unto you. So we thank you, Father, for those blessings, and we ask that you would bless this meeting today, that we may have that same spirit of generosity and compassion and love and sharing that we have within our overall community. You have blessed us, Father. We're grateful. Help us to be, continue to be faithful and to be watchful. And we pray for these things, Father, in the name of our Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen. Amen.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it, Jim. So Shane, while he's coming up here, he's got a Scout and a Cub Scout son who are watching so that they'll be ready to do this in the future.
Too shy to do it.
Yeah, thank you, Shane.
Will the audience rise? Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Shane. Thank you, everyone. Okay. Well, before we actually go to our written agenda today, we've got a couple of things pre-agenda. First of all, I'd like to welcome, not really new anymore, but our relatively new Miss St. George, and it's Sheridan. Do you say it Backus? Yeah, Backus. I was at the, do we call it a pageant still? Okay, I want to be proper. And it was fantastic, the talent that each of the young ladies that were there, and we had a number of them there. You can maybe tell us how many and about your experience there. But please, if you would, come forward and introduce yourself. And I know that you're first and second attendant, and Miss Congeniality couldn't be here today. It's summer, it's what it is. But we're glad to have you here. So come tell us a little bit about your experience and what your plans are. Miss St. George.
All right, thank you. So I am Miss St. George, Sheridan Backus, and sadly, my first attendant, Leilani Koloa, and my second attendant, Abby Gurr, and Miss Congeniality could not be here tonight. And I just wanted to start off with, yeah, as he said, the pageant was really great. I think there were about 13 girls there, and it was just really fun to get to know them and be able to express yourself in many different ways. I actually recently had the opportunity to go to Girls State up in Weber, and I had the honor of being elected city councilwoman.
Hey,
so that was pretty cool.
good work.
And we had many people such as Mitt Romney and Governor Gary Herbert speak. It was pretty great to learn about how everything works here, and it's actually pretty amazing what you guys do. So thank you for that. And so just in the future, if you guys have any opportunities of service or anything we could help you guys with, just let us know and we'd be happy to help. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And we will have some, mostly fun things to do with you, like, our birthday. We'll do the St. George birthday in January, and you can come help us dish up root beer floats and keep everybody entertained while we try to do the root beer floats and parades. But there's more than that. You'll be at the I'm hoping the county fair ribbon cutting, which, by the way, Jimmy, I might have to see if you can go do that for me, because I'm going to be out of town. It's that.
That's okay. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
It's 5:30 on Wednesday, the 8th.
Yeah, it's the 8th, and I've got to be in Salt Lake at that statewide homelessness committee, and
No problem.
I don't dare miss it. So.
It almost sounded like she was excited that it would be me.
I think it,
Did
she
it sound
was.
like?
I think we're gonna have to talk about that. Anyway, so thanks for being there, and I think you probably know the drill in terms of what you do there. It's pretty fun. You get to do a little, cheer or whatever you want to call it, skit, song, whatever you want to do. And with all the talent that the four of you have, I'm sure it'll be great. So, any questions for Sherry?
What was your talent?
I painted a portrait of David Bowie upside down.
Right in front of us.
Really?
Yeah, it was really cool. And there was quite a competition there. There were some talented young ladies. So congratulations.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks for coming, and we'll see you soon. Jimmy will see you really soon, if he can. Okay, let's see. Next, we like to have, on an annual basis, sort of a state of the hospital. And so we've asked today, I believe it's the governing board chair, Brian Chadas, to come and give that report. Is that correct, Brian? Correct. Awesome. And I think, council, you have, they do a nice little statistics and accomplishments page here, so you've got that in front of you, and I'm sure he'll refer to some of those things. And Terry Draper is also here.
I have to apologize. To have to look at me after seeing Miss St. George is quite a contrast, but we'll do the best we can here. As Mayor Pike said, my name is Brian Chadas. I'm chairman of the Board of Trustees for Intermountains Dixie Regional Medical Center. With me is Terry Draper, communications director for the hospital as well. These are some, I also want to recognize Sean Guzman. Sean Guzman sits on our board of trustees and is a great contributor, keeps us in line.
Someone's got to, yeah.
Keeps a lot of people out of a lot of trouble. There's a lot going on. This is an exciting time for the hospital. I'm sure you've been like me, and it's been fun watching the hospital renovation and addition take place. Many of the parts of the hospital are in use now. We were bursting at the seams. We needed this addition. We needed more rooms, and it's twofold. Plus, it gives us the opportunity to provide other services that we weren't able to offer before, which I'll touch upon in just a bit here. So we are having a grand opening on June 12th. That evening, the hospital is bringing in the piano guys. There'll be a free concert for all of the public. And then there'll be tours on the 13th, 14th, and 15th. Just the specifics on that for, again, this is for the whole community.
September, right?
Excuse me, what did I say?
June.
Sorry about that. September, on September 13th and 14th, there'll be tours from 3 to 7. And on September 15th from 10 to 7. So a lot of, the square footage addition was 500,000 square feet. So right now there's a total of about 1 million square feet at the hospital. What it's provided is an opportunity for us to consolidate the services that were over on the 400 South campus, bring it all over to the River Road campus. And so there'll be a lot more efficiencies there, and some synergies that will be created, plus, like I say, some new services that we'll be able to offer. So we would encourage you to join us then and see those additions firsthand. Just like to talk about a couple of extra services. For the size of this community, and we're growing, but even at that, the things that this hospital does is pretty incredible. For example, we will be getting a new intraoperative MRI suite, and that facilitates imaging during brain surgery. During brain surgery, it's very difficult to ascertain which is a tumor and which is the brain. And the tricky part is you want to get all of the tumor but no more, no less. And that's hard to discern by the naked eye. So having the MRI right in there during their operation helps them do that as precisely as you can. Another thing is, and I'm going to have to read this to make sure I get it right, learn about the hybrid angiography suite, which makes heart valve replacement an overnight procedure which involves threading the new valve attached to a catheter to the heart through an artery instead of having to have your chest cracked open. So the things that medical technology just continues to grow at incredible speeds. And this is happening right here in St. George. The other incredible thing, in my estimation, is the fact that on the east side of the hospital, there'll be a standalone building which will be dedicated to specific genomics. I think you've all heard about the work that doctors Nadal and Haslam are doing there with genomics, wherein cancer, even stage 4 cancer patients, will be able to be treated through genomics. And they've also entered into an agreement with Stanford University, so there'll be a lot of research going on in that facility as well. The hospital is an incredible economic driver of this community, as you might imagine. I think the hospital is kind of head in head with being the largest employer, probably compared with the Washington County School District. But if you want to put the payroll number up there, I think it far exceeds as far as what is put into the economy. And so, regardless of the ups and downs, the hospital provides a very steady economic base for this community. The other thing the hospital does, as you probably well know, Intermountain Healthcare is a not-for-profit entity. And because of that, we offer services to all people, even regardless if they have the ability to pay for that service. So there's millions of dollars each year that the hospital steps up and takes care of relative to our charity care. And last year, that was $37 million. And that includes things like the family health care, the doctor's volunteer clinic, and much more. So we're proud of that and appreciate the opportunity to be involved with this great community. And Mayor Pike, we appreciate the opportunity you've given us to come and present today. Council members, again, I think we have a great relationship. We appreciate you, and I think this community appreciates the hospital and what we have here. I've been involved with the Entrada development from its inception, and there is no question in my mind that Entrada is where it is today because of the hospital. Partly because of the hospital, because the people who buy homes there, a lot of them are second homes in their retirement age or older. One of the things at the top of their list they ask is, what type of health care do you have in this community? And when they find out the services that's offered here and the types of facilities, they come here with full faith and confidence that one of the things is checked off their list, and that's great health care. So I have been involved with the hospital for a number of years on the foundation board as well as the board of trustees, and I can commit to you that at the end of the day, the first and foremost thing that is on our administrators' mind, on the doctors' minds, the nurses, is the patient. At the end of the day, the patient is the key issue. And they keep the main thing is to keep the main thing, and that is the patient. And we're not perfect, but I think as chairman of the board, I have the opportunity to get a lot of compliments from a lot of people relative to the health care that they receive and the care that people have. So thank you for this opportunity to update you a bit, and we'd be happy to take any questions if you have them.
Sean, first of all?
Well, there are the really exciting things that they're doing at the hospital that a city our size doesn't have across the United States that we talked about right now. One of the big things that they do at the hospital, and they're expanding right now with this new expansion, is the mental health care they provide our community. And the law enforcement can tell you that has been a growing segment and problem just region-wide. And if it weren't for the hospital with its nonprofit status stepping up and filling that role and even adding some beds, we would have nowhere to take them because the state facilities are full and they're all up north, and trying to get someone, what we say pink sheeted, is very difficult to do. And so they're filling a role there that very quietly filling this role that really helps our community, and I just didn't want that to go unnoticed, that with this expansion, they're also providing more beds for that.
It's a great point. Thanks, Sean.
And I'm not sure, frankly, Sean, thanks for bringing it up. I'm not sure what we would do because, you know, that means you got to transport them, but where? If there are no beds up north. And so it's one of those things, I think it is a benefit of a not-for-profit hospital that, because otherwise a for-profit probably wouldn't do it because it's a money loser.
Right.
And so there are other things similarly that, you know, it's one of the good things about a not-for-profit system. It's not that they've still got to make a little bit of a bottom line, but they don't have to pay shareholders. And that's really the key. And I know, Brian, you mentioned the charity care, and this council's been around long enough. I think they know the difference because they've heard this presentation previously from Steve Kaplan, you know, this from last year. But that is not bad debt. That's not, you know.
We can't count that.
They can't count
care.
that.
Charity care.
These are people that they do not have the ability to pay, and the bad debt that they've chosen to write off because they haven't been able to collect it, that's a separate amount.
That's right.
And a lot of money as well. So anyway, it's important. And, you know, the reason that I think it's important to have this report is because, at least at this point, this is our community hospital. It's the only hospital, and it's, I believe, fulfilling the mission that they've been asked to fulfill because it was originally a county facility and was sold to Intermountain Healthcare in, I don't know, 1984-ish? 75? Oh, I'm way behind. So it was, I believe, one of the first to be added to the Intermountain Healthcare system as they were formed just maybe a year or two before that. Yeah. So it's, I know that the story gets told a lot, but the county commissioners at that time, and some of you might remember the name, let's see, was it Murray Webb? Mm-hmm. Does that ring a bell, Jimmy? Mm-hmm. And Betty, Joe, any of you that knew those families? It was a kind of a handshake deal with the senior management of Intermountain Healthcare and said, will you, Dave Jepson was the man's name, will you, promise, will you, papers one thing, contracts one thing, will you take care of the people of Washington County? And that was the commitment made, and I think they've honored that, as has been said. They're, I'm a little biased because I work for Select Health, a division of Intermountain Healthcare, but I've observed it in my role as city council member and mayor, and there are many services here that, by the numbers, probably wouldn't normally be here.
And just to reiterate something that you said, Mayor, it's it's all of the services that are needed for a community of this size, and some of those services are losing propositions, but they're offered, and like I say, they're here for the needs. There's very few things that we now have to transport out because we can't handle here. There are a few, but that list is becoming shorter and shorter. In fact, there's a lot of areas that come in here that can't be handled in smaller communities. So
interesting thing as you look at these statistics, Joe, Betty, Jimmy, as you've been here for a few years, do you remember how many physicians were here, say 30, 40 years ago?
We knew them all.
You knew them all, didn't you?
I thought it was just Dr.
Booth
Fossen.
and Fossen, and let's see, McKay Christian,
Yeah.
and Staley,
Yep.
Dr. Staley.
Booth.
Dr. Booth.
And Dr. Last out in Hurricane, right?
Yep.
There weren't very many, and Bruce Williams was a surgeon here. He's retired now, but
Winch.
Richard Winch,
if you look at your paper now, Mayor,
Carlisle Stout.
total physicians 2017, 334.
Yeah.
Wow.
So you could, not too long ago, you would have known all the doctors. I think Neil Capel was maybe the first orthopedic surgeon here, if I remember right. But anyway,
Yeah.
it's in a matter of really pretty little time, it's grown significantly. And that's, again, we're glad they're here. As you said, Brian, it's important to our economy. Our airport, our university, our healthcare system, those are kind of an important three legs of a stool that I think are
Exactly.
necessary to have.
I need to mention one other thing. You all know and love Terry Kane as we do. She's moved on within Intermountain, has a very responsible position there. Our new administrator is Mitch Cloward, and he would be here with us today if he weren't on vacation. So he is very capable. He has the full faith and confidence of the Board of Trustees and is doing a great job, and we haven't missed a step.
He's been at the hospital for 15 years.
Yes,
So.
in other capacities.
Yeah.
Mayor, I really appreciate Sean bringing up mental health, because every year, Terry, I always ask how many beds, psychiatric beds, and so that's really, really, really encouraging. And I see Dave Jepson all the time, and I ask him how things are going, and everybody's so pleased with the hospital and what you're accomplishing. I see you got the parking lot finished over there, just coming around on Medical Center Drive. There's so much going on over there.
That's where the concert's going to be, by the way.
Yep.
So,
Can't start using it for parking until we have a celebration, right?
That's right.
So.
Well, we know you have a full agenda. Just go ahead.
Jimmy?
Just one question,
Yeah.
but to echo, what Sean said and everybody else has said, what a great economic anchor it is. Also, medical care doesn't just stop with the procedure. I just have to give a little shout out that for the other stuff that the hospital does, we have the local homeless coordinating council, and the hospital has a full-time staff that takes care of those issues of people who come in for medical care, and when they're leaving they have nowhere to go, so they follow through with that, and they have social workers there who are actively engaged not only at the hospital level but in the community to try to make sure those people have a place to go and recover, and that it's an ongoing proposition, that they're not just going out to be homeless from then on. And that representative happens to be related to me, but he comes there, he gives great input, not just for the hospital's standpoint, but for the community as a whole. So they're a great community partner. And then just a question, because I got asked this week in the community, and that's kind of my growing up area, the old campus.
What's going to happen there?
Yeah.
I need to preface this a bit. This is all in the thinking about it stages. So, but if you think about where that's located, it's right next to the LDS Temple. It's right in the same neighborhood as the Genealogy and Family History Center. Not too far from the university, quite close to downtown. If you mix that with the demographics of this area, the thought has been, what would be a great thing to do there is put in some type of an assisted living facility that would have different levels as far as relative to the type of needs there are, from little need to all the way up to perhaps medical assistance being right on site there for, we're all getting older. And as we know, this area caters to the retired community. So a project such as this, where it has the facilities around it that would interest people, and with our demographics, something with assisted living with medical mixed in with it may make some sense. So like I say, that's in very preliminary, and we'll just see how that goes.
Well, and Jimmy, they've involved the city in some of these early discussions. John Willis has been involved, kind of a senior community, as Brian said, various levels down to no assistance,
Right.
And then up to,
Perfect.
what's needed. So
Great idea, actually.
That's still in the planning stages, but I appreciate that you've involved our planner in that process.
And the city's going to have to be very involved there. So that was why city was involved very early in the process, and will continue to be coordinated, because there's a whole block there that has great potential.
Well, there's John right there. So there he is right there. We haven't had any meetings recently, but I know that they've involved him. Betty.
Mayor, I just want to say thank you for moving the women's
Yes.
health and birthing facilities to the new facility. I think that's really great.
Wait till you see it.
I know, I can imagine, and I
Be
didn't
nice.
think, yeah. And also, I want to thank Terry specifically. She's the kind of glue that holds an organization together. She's everywhere. She's extremely valuable to the Chamber of Commerce and so many other organizations, and I just want her to know how much we appreciate her.
You see anything in print for the hospital, that's
Yeah.
where it came from.
Terry, how
She
long
does
have you
a great
been
job.
there?
23 years.
Oh, see, that says so much to me.
It does.
Administrators come and go, but Terry stays forever.
She is great. I will second that.
It's that friendly, smiling face you always get.
Love to smile. I'd rather type than speak, so.
Anything else, council? Thank you
Well,
very
thank you
much.
for the kind words. Appreciate it. We'll
Thank you,
pass
Brian.
that on.
And congratulations on your new role as governing board chair.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Okay, one last thing, and very important still. Republic Services is here to make a presentation. They did a couple of these before, but we needed to do one more that couldn't be here that
last
day.
one of the year.
Yeah.
So that was a perfect prelude to what I have to present today. First and foremost, it's an honor to be here, Mayor and Councilman. As we go through this each year, we look for outstanding students, outstanding citizens throughout the community who, one, are looking to make a difference. And this year for Desert Hills High School, we have, I think, found the perfect student, perfect citizen, and really perfect, I guess, future of what St. George will bring. So I want to start off by saying this candidate had a 4.0 all 4 years of high school. How impressive. I barely made it to class when I was in high school. So to be able to go through and with the 4.0 is really outstanding. She plans to attend the University of Utah, going into actually pre-med. She wants to be an anesthesiologist. So
Good. Come back
Intermountain
here, Kay.
Healthcare has a future employer here. What brought her to that point, though, is when she was 5 years old, she tore her ACL, MCL, meniscus in a trampoline accident. Through that process, she had 13 knee surgeries, and has really what has driven her to become a pre-med student was how close she got with the doctors and how well they helped her and took care of her as a little child. So this year, for Desert Hills High School, I want to honor Autumn Woods as our finalist for the Republic Services Scholarship. And as usual, if I can have all the mayor and all the councilmen come down for a picture.
Come on down. Christina, it's Chris Grover.
So I do apologize. I forgot to introduce myself.
You're fine. I just want to give you credit for being here, Chris. Now, I went to Desert Hills High School's awards night, and if I'm not mistaken, you won a number of scholarships. Yes. And so I think you chose well, Chris, and Republic Services. So she's got lots for us to be watching for her to accomplish in the future. So congratulations to you. Mike, should we take a picture? Yeah. You're the one that matters.
1, 2, 3.
Thanks. Appreciate Republic Services and our other corporate citizens that do such a nice job of recognizing students and contributing in many ways to our community. So,
I just wanted to clarify that I had a 4.0 once. It was a blood alcohol level.
I think you'd be dead, dude. If you... Not Joe. Okay. All right, well, on that cheery note, let's see. I think we're finished with the pre-agenda items. Thanks for everybody for being here for those. It's we've had these lined up for some time now. We have actually one more that I'll not today, but another time that I think I mentioned to you about. One of the Miss St. George royalty members from last year gave the greatest little speech at this pageant here back in, was it April or May? I forget. And it was so good, I want you to hear it. She was going to come tonight and ended up not working out, so she'll come again. I'm trying to remember her name. McKenna Field. And it was fantastic. You will love it. So anyway, we'll bring her in maybe next time. Adam, any changes to the agenda? Seems like there was one.
We do have one change. Item number 5 will not be heard by the council tonight. There are just a few items that have not been resolved yet, and we didn't feel comfortable asking the council to move on that one.
Very good. Then I think we're ready to proceed.
First up on the agenda is the consent calendar. We have 2 items here. These are administrative items. They've been reviewed by staff. They fully comply with all of our requirements. Unless the council would like to pull either of these items off for individual consideration, then staff would recommend approval.
Council, there are only 2 items, but any that you would want to pull out for individual discussion? If there aren't, I'd accept a motion to approve the 2 items on the consent calendar.
Mayor, I would like to make a motion that we approve the 2 items that are found on our consent calendar.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Betty with a second by Joe.
Yeah.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Shane. One of those was yours, I think. So we didn't even have a lot of discussion, but that's how we do those things now. Speeds up the meetings, and we have all the information we need. Thank you for providing it. And thanks for the New Hampton Inn. Hope it's going well. Okay.
Item number 2 is a professional services agreement. We're going to ask Rich Stameyer, our airport manager, to give you the background on that one.
Council, this could have been on the council or on the consent calendar. Adam and I felt like, though, that we had to go into a little detail on this, and just again, so the public knows what's going on as well. So, Rich?
This is Amendment 4, correct? So, good evening, Council. Rich Stameyer, Airport Manager of St. George Regional Airport. So, what this is amendment. Every time that we get a grant, and then our airport engineers, Javiation, does the work, we have them do a new amendment to their agreement. Their agreement's a 5-year agreement, and so this is just an amendment. And what this amendment is for our it's AIP 27, which is basically has to do with a lot of work that has been done over the last 3 years in regard to research to make sure that the runway will be fixed next year. And so there was a lot of surveying, both by drone and by vehicle, to see where the movement is in the runway. A lot of surveying.
Right in the middle?
Right in the middle, yes, unfortunately. And then also some geotech work that was done over the last 3 years, and they've actually been tracking this since 2012. So there's been a lot of work that's been done. So basically what this amendment is for all that work that has been done over the last 3 years, they'll now get paid for. And as you saw, the payment comes 90% from the FAA, and then the rest comes from passenger facility charges, PFC funds.
Say that again, would you please? It sounds so pretty.
What's that?
90%?
90%, yes, 90%. It's actually a little over 90%. So, so no funds will actually come from the general fund of the city for this project.
The 10% or whatever, 9% will come from airport operations.
Yeah, from actually from passenger facility charges.
Passenger facility charges, okay.
PFCs. The only one thing in this that needs to probably be changed before approval is that it says there additionally includes the contract documents, specs, and plans associated with the runway patches and drainage improvement project scheduled for the fall of 2018. That is actually not in this project. It will be in the next amendment, Amendment 5. So that would need to be striked if you, I think when Public Works, Cameron Cutler put that in there, he put that in there, but it was not, is not included. So it was not included in the scope of work for this project.
Adam can pass that along, I think, to Sean, and we can make it, if we do choose to approve it, we can make it subject to that change.
Is that still going to be done in the fall?
It will be done in the fall, yes. Matter of fact, probably within the next 3 weeks, you'll get another amendment number 5 for that actual project.
Perfect.
And that will be for a separate grant as well to do that work. Any questions?
Council? We appreciate you being on top of this and working with the FAA and everyone that you need to. So,
just a quick positive note, other than bumpy runways. A positive note is that since last year, the enplanements at our airport have gone up 31%. So that was
LA flight seems to be doing well,
and
Phoenix. Yeah.
And if you haven't heard, there's a third Phoenix flight that's happening
in the fall,
in September. So that's it's on the website now, so I can announce.
You can say that.
Yeah, I can say that. So you can actually go book the flight now.
That's great. So we now have, although sometimes there are seasonal changes, but we typically have 4 flights a day to Salt Lake, and that's 4 to and 4 back. Mm-hmm. And we have 2, soon to be 3, a day to Denver.
Phoenix.
To Phoenix, sorry, which is American.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Salt Lake's Delta. And then we have the 2 flights a day to Denver.
To Denver, that's
and then
correct.
The 1 to LA.
And that's all. And those are all with United.
And those are United.
Yeah.
So we've got, and you remember SkyWest, they do business with 4 major carriers, and it's those 3 plus Alaska.
Alaska, that's correct.
So with any luck, maybe they'll bring an Alaska, destination at some point. Not Alaska, but one of their destinations, maybe Bay Area, something like that. Sometime. Feels really good, doesn't it, to say that?
How about Boise?
Oh, Boise. I think she might know someone that lives in Boise.
Yeah.
2 people.
Yeah.
Mayor, just as a follow-up to Rich mentioned the bumpy roads or the bumps on the airfield, I get a lot of questions and asking us how that's coming along and how the improvements are taking place. And we say they're going right along real good. We spoke a little bit about it earlier. And the constant changes, but the safety and the well-being of the passengers, everything's being looked out for.
This project that we'll do this summer will include 3 more additional patches in the runway, and then some grading work outside on the west side of the airport so that we keep the water from coming onto the airport. All that work will be done this summer and fall, and then next year will be the big project to fix the runway.
Yeah, and we want to make sure we keep up on it, and so does the FAA, and again, they fund most of this.
That's
but
correct.
These projects are, as Rich calls them, patches, and they're usually done at night, and it's not a significant impact. Next year, when they do a bigger project, it'll be significant.
Significant
and
impact.
so as we learn more about that, we'll present that to the public.
That'll be great.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Questions, council? Otherwise, I'd be ready for a motion to approve Amendment 4 to the Javiation Professional Services Agreement with the caveat of the one change that needs to be made that Rich talked about in terms of the fall.
Mayor, so moved.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, so a motion by Betty, second by Ed. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Rich.
Item number 3 is an application to change the zone for the 4-master medical project, and John is going to give us the background on that one.
So this item is a public hearing and consideration of an ordinance changing the zone from R110 to AP Administrative Professional on 6.91 acres for 4-master medical. The property is generally located east of Meadow Creek Estates and River Road and north of 900 South. So this item, general plan, was seen at the City Council last general plan hearings, and it was approved for professional office. This is the site. This is Four Masters here. This is River Road, and so it's just this highlighted portion in the green. The current zoning on the property is R110. Looking at the surrounding zone, there's AP just to the north of this, and so what the request is to extend that AP zone to AP in these properties. The general plan is PO, professional office, which does allow for an AP zone and also a PD zone. The applicant is requesting the AP zone. This is the zone change exhibit that's provided by the applicant. Staff's reviewed it, Planning Commission reviewed it, and recommended approval for this zone change. And that concludes staff's presentation on this item.
You've seen this before, as John mentioned, in terms of the general plan. Any questions, council, before we open a public hearing? Okay. All right, then I will open the public hearing for any who may have come to express input or ask questions on this item, number 3 on our agenda today. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and come back to you, council, for any discussion or for a motion.
Mayor, I'll go ahead and make a motion that we that we approve the ordinance to change the zone from R110 to AP on the 6.91 acres at Four Master Medical.
We have a motion by Jimmy and a second by Joe. And again, that AP zone is administrative professional. For those who might be in the audience and not sure what that is, that's what it is. Seems to be in harmony, doesn't it, with the surrounding facilities. Any discussion on the motion?
That just means that, and that also means it'll come back to us before any development.
That's
for
correct.
approval.
Yeah. Okay, then all in favor, let's see, this is an ordinance. All in favor, starting with Ed, say aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously.
Next item on the agenda, item number 4, a public hearing and consideration of an ordinance amending PDR, Plan Development Residential Zone, for the view at Green Valley, located south of the Green Valley Spa, east of Estancia Resort, and north of Trend West. And so this is a plan development amendment, and so this evening the City Council's requested to consider the elevations in the site plan for this development. This is the property located in the red. This is Canyon View. This is Plantations. Estancia is located here, and so it's this inner portion of the Green Valley resort area. Again, the zoning is PDR, and this is an amendment to supplement the zone with this additional information. The land use designation is MHDR, which is medium high density residential, and it allows a density range from 10 to 15 units an acre. This is the site plan that the applicant is bringing forward for City Council's consideration. They're proposing 35 units. They're at 11.44 dwelling units an acre, so they are within that MHDR range. They're at the lower end of that range. They're going to have 5 buildings with the 35 units. They are going to have garages, and so they do meet the parking requirements. They also meet the landscaping requirements. They are required recreation components, 200 square feet per unit. They're proposing a pool, playground, and pickleball court. You can see those in the site plan. Here's the playground and pool, and then the pickleball court in each of the areas. They do exceed the minimum 7,000 square feet that's required. They are meeting the guest parking ordinance. This is located in the Green Valley resort area, which is approved for short-term rentals, and they are also proposing short-term rentals in this area. This is their landscaping plan. Staff will review their landscaping plan and ensure that it meets all the city ordinance and vegetation coverage during the construction drawing process. If you look here, they're providing 2 access points off of this private road and this private road. One of the conditions that staff's recommending is that they provide the necessary documents to prove that they have access on those private streets, and so that's one of the conditions that we'll look at. This is their elevations. These are 3-story townhouses. They are under the 35 feet. They're at approximately 33 feet. As I said, they have the garages. Here's the elevations. This is kind of more of the plan view showing the different perspectives. This is the rear and the 2 sides and the front, which was shown in the perspective drawing. They did provide the color board, and that's located on the table. If the council would like to look at it, I can pass that around. They're proposing stucco with some metal accents. Planning Commission reviewed it, recommended approval. All the conditions are pretty standard conditions, except the one regarding the 2 accesses and demonstrating the ability to access from those private streets. Planning Commission recommended approval, and that concludes staff's presentation.
Council, any questions?
John, because there's such great interest over the years on the parking studies, traffic studies that are warranted when they build new facilities such as this, and the fact that this is going to be a short-term rental, some people seem to feel that short-term rentals they bring in more vehicles.
Get your mic up just a little, Ed.
So can you just let the public know, let us know that the city has addressed those issues? We're responding to those requirements that are mandated, and the traffic issues have been satisfied.
So on a particular project, we look at the amount of trips that are generated, and typically on a use like short-term rentals or multifamily, usually the threshold is 200 units in order to trigger that TIS. And so this being well underneath that trigger, staff isn't going to require that traffic study per ordinance. Wes Jenkins is also here, and he can address that in a little bit more detail if the council would like to.
I think it'd be good. We had a little discussion in executive staff meeting about this today. Wes, would you maybe come in to discuss the traffic issue and whether or what would drive that, if you will?
Okay, and I know in our discussions this morning, it was talked about the other projects that they were involved in, the lofts, this one in Estancia. So I counted up all the number of units just to see on an aggregate basis if a traffic study would be required. As John indicated, this by itself would not require it. So I added them up. There were about, let's see, I wrote it down here, 159 units between Estancia, the View, this one, and the lofts. And so based on, and if you look in the ITE, it's about 0.5 trips at peak hour is the high. And so that would only generate about 80, let's see, about 83 peak trips. And like John indicated, in the city standards, it indicates at 100 trips is usually the trigger for a traffic study. And so that's why we didn't require a traffic study. It does stay in there, you know, if the city decides that this is an area that needs it based on concerns or it's, something like that, there is, you know, a traffic study can be required, but it's based on the total number of units, it wouldn't be required.
So I guess, you know, I believe we got some input on this, didn't we? Didn't we get an email on this one, as I recall? So do we feel like Adam, Sean, or Wes, John, are we covered? And in terms of the things that will be needed because of the accumulation, you know, of these several projects in this vicinity, are we and the residents, you know, covered, if you will, with those things that will be needed as a result of all of them? I just want to make sure that we're, you know, whether it's doing a traffic study or whether it's paying for, you know, improvements to the road or a signal down the road, pardon the pun. What do we think there?
I know when Estancia came in, there was some discussion about a traffic study. an agreement was worked out where at that time they were working on Canyon View Drive, and so the agreement was worked out between the city and them that they helped pay for a portion of those improvements on Canyon View Drive at that time. So I knew that was one thing that had happened.
And that was just a very small portion of it.
Right.
I think the difference being that with the new alignment of Canyon View Drive, it took a lot of pressure off the old Canyon View, Osler Way now, that helped relieve that pressure. But now there's still the cumulative impact of adding more traffic on the roadway. So it's a different situation than it was before. We already had the agreement with the Lakes Inn. That was one of the concerns that they raised is, we're footing a good portion of the bill for that Canyon View segment when it's not just the lakes that's adding traffic to that roadway.
So staff is comfortable with things as they've been presented and without a traffic study or any further contributions?
Yeah, I think so. One of the things when it came to Planning Commission was there was a concern about access for emergency vehicles. I did get with Kevin Taylor, visited with him, and he felt like he wouldn't need a second access right now. As he said, there is a second access coming up Alienta, even though it isn't paved all the way. But he said, these improvements are coming here in the near future. Felt like he could work with it for now, knowing that another access would be provided here in the future, and that it's planned that way.
I think we also have to remember the nature of those units isn't that everybody goes to work at 8 o'clock and comes back at 5. What traffic there is going to be spread out anyway, just because of the nature of the people who'll be there.
It's true. It's just a little more dense than our typical neighborhood. Any other questions or comments before we open a public hearing? Okay. Thank you, Wes. All right, I'll open the public hearing for any who may have come to offer input on this item number 4 on our agenda. And seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and come back to you, council, for any further discussion or for a motion when you're ready.
I'd just make a quick comment, Mayor, that I think that the short-term rentals, the way the city's dispersing them at different sites and locations, that we're accommodating that particular venue, and I think that that's important that we continue to do that.
Good point. And again, this is an area, as Wes said, I believe it was Wes, that is entitled to that, and we have other ways where it can be accomplished. If you have if it's not in an area that's resort overlay, it could still be done, but you'd have to have, Sean, I believe it's 100 units, and you've got to have the right amenity, an amenity, and so anyway, it's nice. I agree that we have opportunities for this, but that it feels organized. It feels like you're not changing existing residential neighborhoods. That was our concern.
Still is.
Yeah.
Mayor, I'll go ahead and make a motion if you're ready to approve the ordinance allowing for the zone change amendment to create the townhome project known as the View at Green Valley.
Second.
Motion by Jimmy with a second by Betty. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, starting this time with Betty, say aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Should we go to the addendum?
That would be good.
Okay.
We have 2 items on the addendum.
There's other exciting things coming up, you guys.
Look, he thought about it, but thanks, gentlemen.
Item number 1 on the addendum is a reimbursement agreement with Valley Builders, and we'll have Wes provide the background on this one.
Okay, yeah, the request is to a reimbursement agreement with Valley Builders for the upsize of a storm drain and additional pavement along 1140 South. So here's 1140 South right here. This is 3210 East. So currently the LDS Church is constructing a new church right here. This is an old chip seal road that was in the, I'm assuming it was in the county. Anyway, so as part of the improvements on the church, they've been required to come in and pave that portion and put in curb, gutter, and sidewalk and pavement along the frontage of the church. As we got looking out, and then as they were also to put in a 15-inch storm drain line from 3000 East to their project. As we got looking, first of all, at the pavement, we realized that once you got beyond where the church was right here, the chip-sealed road from here forward to a point was only about 22 feet wide. And we got kind of nervous, especially with the amount of traffic. And then there's going to be a school that's under construction like right here too. And then there's one up further. And as we were out there looking at this, we determined that, we really need to widen the road all the way out to 3000 just with the amount of traffic on that street. So our proposal is to enter into a reimbursement agreement with Valley Builders, who's constructing the LDS church, and to basically pave 32 feet from here, from their west property line, and then it actually tapers down from here to 3000 East. This portion right here, I got to find the line. This portion from about right here to the west is all is new pavement that was put in as part of the 3000 East improvements. So we'll utilize that, but once we get past here, we won't utilize the chip seal, and then we'll pave over to the church's property so that we have at least a minimum of 32 feet of pavement to carry that traffic through there. And then there was a 30-inch storm drain line through here, and so we're going to upsize it from where they were going to do 15 and make it a 30-inch all the way over here to 3210 East to account for their drainage, future drainage. And right along here is a possible future kind of like 3000 East ditch that will convey the water from 3000 East over to 3210 up to Mall Drive, and it'll dump into the one that was just recently constructed on Lynn's. So we felt like we ought to have a storm drain line that collects the drainage here, plus would allow us to tie into that ditch to drain off the water too during a heavy event or something like that. So that's really the reimbursement agreement, is to upsize that storm drain and add that additional pavement. And the condition is, we haven't quite nailed down the exact cost yet. We're really close. We met with the contractor. We're just working out a couple details. So the condition would be not to exceed $200,000, which I think we can easily do. And then it would be subject to legal's approval of the agreement. They've reviewed it once, a couple changes we just need to make when Victoria gets back, and we're ready to go. And the reason we're kind of pushing ahead is we're trying to get this done before school starts, or right there close to, as that traffic will start to increase.
But your best estimate is in the 200,000.
It'll be less than 200. Right now we're at like 170, but just give us a little buffer in case
We do a
some of the
not to
prices.
exceed 200.
Yeah. One of the challenges, just so you're aware, is we're working with the church using their prices. When they bid this out, they have a flex in their asphalt prices in case asphalt prices go up, because the church, once it starts construction, doesn't really pave until a year later when the church is finished. And so we've had to work a little bit on their asphalt prices. That's
Any other questions, council, on this?
I just asked Jimmy, how you feel about that drainage and all that water down there?
Hey, I'll take all the water we can get, drainage or not. No, the drainage is getting better down there.
Mayor, I'd like to move to approve a reimbursement agreement with Valley Builders for upsize of storm drain line and additional pavement along 1140 south, which should not exceed $200,000 and be subject to legal review.
Perfect.
Yep. Second.
We have a motion by Betty with a second by Ed. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. That motion carries unanimously. Sean, do you want to hit the last one?
Yes, Mayor.
I think that's what I saw Adam saying.
That's that's what he was telling me.
Yeah.
In our ordinances, we have a provision with animals, dogs specifically, where their owner has repeatedly failed to keep their dog enclosed, or to keep them from menacing or molesting people as they're walking out on the streets or in their own yards. In that provision of the city ordinance, it allows us to revoke a owner's dog license, their ability to have that dog license in the city. So we have a case recently where it's been, we've had repeated problems for years with an individual. The neighbors have come to us and complained about it. We have observed that the animal, again, has been not kept in the yard and has been menacing and molesting pedestrians and children in their yards or on the sidewalks. So we have the dog in our care at our animal shelter right now and have revoked the license of the individual to have that dog. The individual is appealing, and so we, in this ordinance, in this resolution, are spelling out the appeal process. That appeal process is made up of an ad hoc committee. There will be 3 persons that will be proposed by the mayor and approved by the council to sit on that committee and to hear the appeal from this individual regarding her ability to keep that animal in the city. It also spells out in here what the process is of that hearing and the standard of review, and that the decision at the city level of this ad hoc committee will be final and the appeal would be to district court.
Just a point of clarification, Sean, this isn't a decision that this appeal committee, if you will, this ad hoc committee would make. This isn't about putting an animal to sleep.
Not at all.
This is about the license.
That's right. So the individual could still maintain ownership of the animal, but not within the city of St. George.
And if the individual chooses not to do that, then or doesn't give it to someone else outside of the city, then we would retain we would have the opportunity to put that animal, that dog, up for adoption.
If that individual wanted to sign that animal over to us, we could do that.
Okay.
The individual will have to make a decision. Should the board decide to uphold the decision to revoke the ability to have a dog license, it'll be up to that individual to decide how to
Gotcha.
care for that animal, where to place the animal.
I think that's a really good way to do it.
So it's a revocation of the license.
That's correct.
And that's it.
And that's what we're, that's what is being appealed, and that's all we're dealing with.
Right.
So does that create a lifetime commitment to take care of that animal by the city?
No. The individual would maintain ownership unless they gave up the ownership of
It's
that
just
animal.
the license.
They just cannot have that animal within the city of St. George.
In the meantime, the animal is at the shelter.
That's right.
So
We are
he could
paying.
decide for 6 years.
Well,
Is there a time frame on it?
yes, the committee will make their decision
Okay.
and then render a decision on when that individual needs to decide
Good.
what to do. And after that, if there's any time frame in between, we could charge board for that animal, and shelter costs, but we'd have to make that decision at that time. But it's up to the individual to decide what to do.
So Sean, this is a business license revocation primarily.
Dog
Dog.
license.
Or dog,
Mhm.
but there's no issue on, or impact on this particular thing as far as injuries having occurred or health issues?
Not with this animal. This individual has had problems with 2 other animals that they have on the property, and we'd have to address those separately.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Then what I would propose is this. I've contacted 3 individuals, and one with significant experience on this, on the issues of that have dealt with the animal shelter, so it's kind of related. And that is, I would suggest this, that we, if you are so inclined, that we approve this resolution establishing an appeal process for the decisions made by Animal Services, in this case, and it could be for others in the future too, and that we appoint, in this case, an ad hoc committee made up of Jimmy Hughes, He's the expert, just in case you wanted to know. And
kinda
Chris,
thought
Chris Nelson, and Danielle Larkin. And so if you're so inclined, I would appreciate a motion being made to that point.
I'd make a motion, Mayor, to that effect, citing those points that you just articulated.
Second.
I have a motion by Ed with a second by Joe. Any discussion? All in favor, this is a resolution requiring a roll call vote, so all in favor, starting with Betty, say aye.
Aye.
Jimmy?
Am I okay to say aye?
You're okay to say aye. You're okay to say nay.
Aye.
You don't feel a conflict of interest? And
Aye.
Aye.
thank you. The motion carries unanimously. The hope would be, by the way, council, if possible, that we do this quickly, like even within the next, week or two. So, all right.
Mayor, any other appointments?
I do have one other appointment. Betty, do you remember the name of the person? Because I do, but I did contact the person that has been requested for a position on the Arts Commission named Jane Anderson. And I would put before you her name. She is, just so you know, she is involved with the Southwest Symphony and with the group Lieto Voices. So she brings some, even herself, some nice diversity, but some good performing arts abilities to the commission. So this would be for a term of 4 years, and she does live within the city of St. George, and she would accept if she's appointed. I talked to her earlier today.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Betty and a second by Ed. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Adam, I believe we wanted to go into a closed session. I don't know if there are any reports we have before we do that.
No reports from me.
No reports from you. Any, Sean, from you?
None.
Betty?
I just wanted to report that the Historic Preservation Committee did meet and discussed marquee for our Electric Theater, and they did, after some discussion, come to a consensus on a very nice design.
Good.
And interestingly enough, the point of discussion, I guess, was on a few Art Deco touches that were included in the design. And one of the members felt like that was not old enough. Art Deco, many of you might know, is around 1930, comes from the 30s. And it wasn't pioneer, but there were some of us that feel that theater is Art Deco. It just somehow rings true somehow. And so we discussed the iterations, design iterations of the Electric Theater, and it did have, at one time, someone purchased it and did quite different things on it. So, I mean, it's one thing to be historic, but there's history as it moves along. So it was decided unanimously to approve that, so they'll come to us. I mean, the designs and things. That's just a little heads up. Also, the St. George Art Museum is just doing wonderful things. They're having a good time, and they're working hard. And they have the For the Love of Art tour coming up.
September.
In September, and I thought I would just pass these out.
There's a great exhibit there now, by the way.
Oh, fantastic.
And I went and met the artist, who's incredible.
Yeah.
So,
And unfortunately, on Thursday night is when most of their discussions are taking place, and it's too bad because they're doing wonderful things. I just have one of these, but they're also, as part of the 20 activities for 20-year anniversary of the museum, which was last year, some of these activities were so successful, they're doing them again this year too. And the Teens Take the Museum was one of those that was just very popular. So on Friday, July 20th at from 6 to 8, if you want to see fun, go to the museum and see the teens that are going to be all over in the museum doing activities and There'll be snacks and a phone booth, photo booth, sorry, not a phone booth, art and music. And here's just a flyer if anybody has teens that would be interested in that. So I think that's all.
Wonderful. Thank you, Betty. Appreciate those updates. Jimmy, anything?
Yeah, just briefly, Mayor, I want to just talk a little bit about St. George Housing Authority and bring up an issue so that you're all aware of it and the public would be aware of it. But first of all, St. George Housing Authority just got their review. HUD has again ranked us as a high-performing housing agency, which
awesome.
is always has been that way for the last several years.
But it wasn't for a few years,
right.
so thank you.
So the current administration and the board that we have is doing a really good job. Budget-wise, we just finished up our budget for this year. We're finishing out strong. We have a good budget, despite the fact that the one thing that we're sounding like a broken record, but obviously we know housing prices and the shortage of affordable housing. One of the areas we do have a shortage in is the Section 8 housing program. We're running at about a $10,000 deficit. Now what that means, what that program does, it's really good because it helps a lot of people, and it's a percentage of rent based on their income. They get a certain amount of help, and that can change and fluctuate and lower. Problem is rents have gone up, so we only have so many vouchers or so many people we can help. We're still helping the same amount of people, but the dollar amount has gone up, and it's exceeded what we get from HUD. Well, the problem is you don't just tell HUD you need more money. It doesn't happen that way. But there is a shortfall committee, and we're working through some of that. But as of this point, we're running at that deficit. So what we're doing is we have to, before we can get any shortfall assistance, we have to make sure that we've done everything else we can do.
So what do you do?
One of those things we have done is we went through all of the people on Section 8, and we found a handful of about 10 that were getting 100% of things paid for. So we've instigated the minimum, anybody on the program minimum has to pay $50. So that's the one thing that we've done. Second thing we just did in our board meeting this week is we've updated our policy, which allows us, if it comes to this, to be able to arbitrarily take people off the program if we have to, if we keep running at a deficit and we don't get the shortfall money. So it's kind of, we're victims of a good economy. Yeah. We're hoping some of these new multi-housing projects will stabilize the rental market and bring it back in. We are allowed to pay up to 110% of the median rents, which that's another thing that may need to be adjusted with HUD, and hopefully that catches up. We have this number that's the median rent considered for 2-bedroom, 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, and we can go to 135%, I think, of that number. We're doing that, and we still are getting a little bit of a shortfall. However, our budget's still we have reserves. Our budget's still okay. We'll be okay for a certain amount of time, and hopefully we'll get reimbursed. So it's just something that we need to be aware of, and we've got to keep beating that drum. Part of that discussion, too, along with SwitchPoint and the local homeless coordinating council, is in our vision and our mission to help people get to where they need to be. And this is a nationwide thing. They have that phenomenon of you're going to hit what they call the cliff at some point. That's something that we need to address nationally, and so I want you guys all to be aware of it and the public to be aware, and we got to keep beating this drum because no one's really taking this up. What that means is at some point you'll make enough money to get off of the government program, but not enough to survive. For example, if you're going along and you're getting enough assistance to pay for child care and you have a good job and you're making, say, $18 an hour, and then you get to the point where you're making $20 and you lose your benefit and you can no longer get any benefit to pay for child care, you may be paying more for child care than you're making. So there's a gap in there where you have to then jump to the $28 an hour or $25 an hour, whatever that number is, so that you can survive on your own. And so what ends up happening is there's little incentive to better yourself unless you make the jump. Big jump. So that's something that's a national issue. It's something that when we think about trying to help people be self-sufficient that we have to address, and somehow we've got to address that gap. And that's echoed from the St. George Housing Authority to the Homeless Coordinating Council to SwitchPoint. We can help those people in the bottom of the market, and for several years or several pay raises and we can give them those incentives, but at some point they're going to have to face a really hard decision. And we have seen people that get on Section 8 that will all of a sudden quit their job because they run into that, where if I lose my benefits, I won't be able to survive. So anyways, other than that, things are going well at the St. George Housing Authority. So
Thank you, Jimmy. Appreciate you being on that board. It's really important to have good people on it and have a good director. And Mike Barbin is doing a great job. So, Joe, anything to report? Ed?
Just, Mayor, that the Hillside Board had a meeting this on the Wednesday, I believe, and that Bandit Hills up on by the old airport road going on the old north side of the new replacement airport. About 29 lots in there, and that's moving forward. Your new appointment to the board was present.
Oh, good.
And we had a
Mr. Patton, yeah. Sean Patton.
Right. And so there was a good exchange, and following that decision to move forward on that with updates on the engineers and soils and all of that that's forthcoming and how to enhance that. They did have a little meeting with just the board members to review some of the challenges and some of the things we can expect in the future to keep up to date with the changes that are taking place. So you can, again, the growth continues, and I had the opportunity to talk to one of the developers there and asked how things were going, particularly on affordable housing, and that decision that was made by this council a while back where we changed the zoning so that you could have units within 3 feet of one another. But that's starting to have a profound effect on that, and it looks like it's very positive that they'll be able to start building more affordable housing within that 239 to 50 range, which is quite needed. So there's a lot going on, and we're paying attention to those things, and I think it was good that this council was able to change that zoning and ordinance that allows those type of developments. Just wanted you to be updated with that.
Appreciate that. Thank you, Ed.
Wait.
Yes, Betty?
I have one more. I apologize. But I also met with the St. George Children's Museum Board, and that isn't a city function, but I am on that board. And they are doing really well. It's a perfect example of how we've taken a historic St. George building and rented it to a private entity that has made it a success of it and allowed thousands of people to go into that building and utilize it and enjoy it. And they wanted to express their thanks for the RAP tax money that they did receive. They were beyond thrilled, and it will really help. And by the way, they have a new exhibit on how children work.
Is that the one up just on the
main floor?
Main floor to the right?
Should come in the door. And
I got to come see it.
It is. It hasn't actually opened yet, but you could go see it if you wanted to. But it's quite amazing, and the staff really did construct it. And there's some sophisticated. There's a building, a city where a crane with a little tiny magnet can go along and pick up things, and there's even a Spider-Man and a Superman, or it's quite amazing. And then the difference between a fulcrum I don't even know these, but where you just have a pulley and it pulls something up, or a rope and you pull something up. There are about 4 or 5 different examples of that, and one of them is a huge barrel filled with gravel, and it's really heavy, and you can pull it up. And frankly, if kids, I can just see kids pulling it up and letting it drop. It's going to be quite exciting. I don't know how long the barrel's going to last, but they've really worked. They've gone far and above to make this wonderful new exhibit, about a $50,000 exhibit to put this in. And it even has one tray where you can simulate an earthquake.
Wow.
Just by manipulating things. So I think kids would love to see that.
That's great, and that's an important thing to kind of update their exhibits, and they've done that several times. And
and by the way, they heard the original museum in Las Vegas, where they got a lot of our present exhibits, was taking exhibits out was just going to throw them away. So Mr. Larkin and his team went down and gathered a lot of stuff that was just going to be discarded. So
Use for the future for us.
they'll start putting things in right away.
Good.
So, yeah.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate everybody's different either assignments or your own volunteer, boards and committees and so forth that you serve on, organizations. I think that adds a lot to the city. So I would like to request that we go into a closed session to discuss the professional competency of an individual, if we could. Adam, Sean, is that correct? Okay. So could I have a motion to that
So moved.
extent? Motion by Jimmy, second by Joe. Any discussion? All in favor, starting with Ed this time, say aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously.
Mayor,
Thank you.
Just for clarification for the public, our next city council meeting won't be until
August 2nd. Yeah, good point, Ed. We will not be meeting next week. We put our 2 regular meetings in the middle of the month to avoid the 2 kind of holiday weeks. Jimmy, you feel bad not to be meeting?